So I recently completed the Fire Force manga, and season 3 of the incredible anime adaptation is literally airing right now. So what better time to make a Fire Force versus JJK crossover video? Specifically, Benimaru Shinmon, the Fire Force's strongest soldier and the destroyer of Asakusa, versus the hacks merchants of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, if you're a big nerd like me and have any idea of how strong Benimaru actually is, then let me please assure you this video is not a waste of time. I mean, sure, I am a horrific power scaler who just makes stuff up, like every other power scaler. However, I think I excel at writing cool scenarios and ability interactions, such as the interactions between Benimaru's awesome Nichirin Sunwheel and Gojo's Infinity, as well as other busted hacks like Mahito's Idol Transfiguration, Yorozu's Perfect Sphere, Maki's Soul-Splitting Katana, Kusakabe's Planetary Level Complex Domain, and I have realized I'm actually just yapping at this point, so let's get right into it. Right then, I'm going to kick things off by talking about Benimaru's abilities, his character, and then his scaling. And by scaling, what I really mean is I'm going to tell you he has big fire, and then you'll scream at me in the comments for not explaining it using the laws of thermodynamics or some other made-up power scaling waffle. I mean, I swear, every time I make a versus battle video, people suddenly become world-renowned physicists. But joke's on you, bro, because I don't even believe in physics. Bitch! Anyway, Benimaru is both a second and third generation pyrokinetic hybrid, meaning he can both create his own flames and manipulate existing flames. His manipulation of heat is also so precise that he can create a broken defense mechanism similar to that of Infinity, albeit slightly worse. To put it simply, he can control absolutely all heat within a 4-meter radius of himself, which has not been shown to have any sort of limit. I mean, I'm sure there is one, like logically there should be a limit, but judging by the fact that it could completely nullify a combined attack from the White Clad and Dragon himself, I'd be willing to wager that the limit is a bit higher than JJK is capable of reaching. Now, don't fret though, because this method is nowhere near as robust as Gojo's Infinity, and he also elects not to use it much because, despite only really fighting when his town is in danger, Benimaru does simply love a good fight. In fact, when it comes to the character archetype of the strongest, Benimaru is actually a lot more similar to Sukuna than Gojo, but I'll talk more about that in a minute. Now, obviously, Beni has your basic second and third gen pyro abilities, which are strong fire blast and strong fire control. I don't really know how else to explain that, it's pretty simple. But his real strength kind of becomes apparent when he utilizes his EI cutters, or forms as we would call them. You see, Benimaru mastered all 7 forms, and yet he still only uses incredibly weak and nerf versions of them all, because if he went full power, I mean, well, I guess we'll kind of talk about that later, but you know what I'm talking about. And one of the scariest things about Benimaru is the fact that we still don't actually know how strong he really is. We can make a decent estimate, but in reality, he could be way stronger than any of us believe him to be, which is actually kind of ironic now that I say it out loud. I mean, if you know, you know, I guess. Anyway, let's quickly run through all the EI forms, starting with EI Chop Form 1, Fire Moon. And just like most of the EI Chops, Benimaru focuses his flames into his hand and creates a laser blade with power so devastating he doesn't even need to touch his opponent with it. By simply swiping his hand in the air, he can send a shockwave so strong it manages to blow both Arthur and Obi off their feet. I guess it's kind of similar to Sukuna firing a dismantle. EI Chop Form 2 is called Moonlight, and this is the exact same move, but he uses both hands at once and slashes in an X shape, which creates a blinding wave of heat. And then there is EI Chop Form 3, Daybreak. Again, this is the same move, but instead it's an upward slash that I believe actually makes contact with the opponent. EI Chop Form 4 is called Red Sun, and this move, unlike the others, is not a chop. The best way I can describe it is literally just by saying strong fire. He just goes full Kamehameha and gives off this giant blast of flames at his poor little opponent. And then there's EI Chop Form 5, Sunset, and this one is the exact same as Form 3, but it's a downward slash instead of an upward slash, which really irritates me because I feel like this one should be Form 4, like it should come next to the up... Do you know what? Whatever, you get my point. And then we have EI Chop Form 6, which is called Dusk. Now, I don't know what this one does. I can't find it anywhere. I have no clue. I'm not rereading the whole manga to try and find it. But if you know, then feel free to let me know in the comments below. And finally, we have EI Chop Form 7. Sunwheel, where Benimaru basically just creates a sunwheel and then slams his opponent with said sunwheel. Yeah, it's as simple as that. Right, now in terms of physical stats, Benimaru is also just absurdly broken. Now, this dude can survive pretty much all the flames and attacks he comes into contact with without any serious injury, meaning he is considerably more durable than anybody in Jujutsu Kaisen by a long shot. His speed is at the very least relativistic, but the actual scaling suggests that he is massively faster than light. Narratively though, the intention for Shinra to be faster is definitely there, and that kind of means that no one else can really reach light speed, because when Shinra reaches light speed, time kind of starts distorting and loads of weird things start happening. Things that don't happen when Benimaru moves. However, you can argue that he is still way faster than light because of how Adola functions in the world of Fire Force. I mean, if you have people like Arthur who can literally fight normally on the frickin' moon simply because he is oblivious to the fact that the pressure should kill him, then Benimaru should be able to move faster than light without breaking into 1,000 pieces. So as long as Benimaru isn't a genius physicist who understands why moving as fast or faster than light isn't really that simple, then the argument exists that he can actually move that fast. Still though, being relativistic, meaning a good percentage of light speed, is still way faster than any Jujutsu Kaisen character is. Physically, he can penetrate an Infernal's core with just his hand, and he also has one-shot his own doppelganger with just 2 fingers. Not to mention the fact he is uncontested in hand-to-hand skill within his own universe. I mean, Fire Force as a whole just scales crazy high, but Benimaru is on a different level completely. He talks about how some of the white-clad, like Sharon and Dragon and even Captain Burns, as if they are like potentially scary opponents who could contest him in a good fight. But let me tell you right now, he's either completely delusional or just straight up lying, because there is no way Benimaru loses to these burgers. I mean, hell, both himself and Joker reckoned that he could take on Dragon, Sharon, and the rest of the right-clad by himself with little trouble. Think about that for a second, yeah? The world builders of Fire Force, like Joker, believe that Benimaru is so strong he could defeat some of the strongest characters in the entire universe at the same time. That is how strong the world believes Benimaru to be. They believe he is an untouchable god. When faced with his own doppelganger, who is as strong as everybody believes Benimaru to be, Konro and the rest of Asakusa make the mistake of having absolute faith in Benimaru to win because they simply cannot imagine Benimaru losing. But in reality, all that sentiment did was make Benimaru's doppelganger that much stronger. And keep in mind that when the two of them finally faced off, Benny's doppelganger created a Nichiren sun wheel that literally encompassed the entire planet and was about to destroy it with that one single attack. And despite how broken the beliefs of everyone made this fake Benimaru, in reality Benimaru was actually just way stronger than anybody could comprehend. And so without breaking a sweat, Benimaru literally no-diff one-shots the doppelganger with 2 fingers. I didn't even see him use any fire, bro. He just poked him in the eye with these fingers and he fell over and died. That is the level of strength that we're talking about here. This is some Saitama level stuff. But like, sure, yeah, the actual scaling results in Benimaru being planetary at the absolute bare minimum. But that's still just a guess because he should be way above that level. The absolute bottom line here though is that he is mind-bogglingly broken and way beyond 99% of Jujutsu Kaisen. I say 99% though because Jujutsu Kaisen has the blatant hacks advantage over Benimaru, at least for the most part. Because what a lot of power scalers forget is that the strength of each fighter is not all that determines the actual outcome of a real fight. Their personalities, their fighting styles, their hacks, their intelligence, all of these are way more important than people give them credit for. Which means that a hacks-dependent universe like Jujutsu Kaisen absolutely does have a shot against a god-level threat like Benimaru. Because at the end of the day, being able to destroy a planet doesn't mean that he will destroy the planet. And having strength on that level does not mean anything when none of your attacks can reach or even damage your opponent. Right then, before moving on to discuss Jujutsu Kaisen, I do want to briefly expand on what I was just saying by exploring Benimaru's character in a little bit more detail. You see, Benimaru is part of the strongest character archetype in the same way that Gojo and Sukuna are for Jujutsu Kaisen, but he doesn't face the same struggles of isolation or pressure in the same way that characters like Gojo do. He is more similar to Sukuna in his mindset, which makes him very, very dangerous. He acknowledges his own strength and without any regret threats, he decided to use that strength to be the sole protector of Asakusa, meaning that any fight which doesn't concern himself or Asakusa simply isn't his fight. He is decisive, driven, and very singularly focused, but he also does enjoy a good fight against a strong opponent. And I say this is similar to Sukuna because they both live by their own beliefs without hesitation, and they do both enjoy a good fight. The key difference though is that despite not getting involved when it doesn't concern him, Benimaru is a genuinely good person who wants to save lives and not end them. The reason this is so important is because yes, he could simply destroy the earth they're all standing on and leave Gojo stranded in space with no hope. I mean, that is literally an almost foolproof way of soloing the JJK universe. But just because he can do this does not mean that he will. He's not stupid. He will know there are billions of innocent people living on Earth and will have no desire at all to kill them. That is the point that I wanted to make, but I think I'll leave it at that for now and move on to discuss Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, I'm going to make this Jujutsu Kaisen scaling section very short and simple, so pay attention. There are generally 3 beliefs when it comes to the speed of Jujutsu Kaisen characters. There is Mark 3 JJK, with Gojo and Sukuna being somewhere within the Mark 10 to 20 range. There is lightning speed Jujutsu Kaisen, and there is light speed Jujutsu Kaisen, which admittedly is rare these days and objectively false, but some people still like to believe it, which is actually just completely fine. When it comes to attack potency in Jujutsu Kaisen, most people generally agree that the top tiers such as Gojo and Sukuna are around small city level, but again, there is some disparity in belief, and occasionally you will find someone who thinks the top tiers are island level, or even some nutcases who think Gojo is universal because of Infinite Void. However, the world of Jujutsu Kaisen is not real. It's a fictional creation, meaning you have the absolute right to believe the characters scale as high as you want them to. If you believe Gojo beats Goku, then there is genuinely nothing wrong with that, and you should never let anyone tell you otherwise. And yeah, what a lot of people then fail to recognize though is that just because you believe something does not mean you have to go and try and make everybody else believe it as well. Everyone would be much happier if you just all believed what you wanted and got on with your day. Yeah, now I myself think JJK is somewhere within the Mark 3 to 10 range and small city level. You may think that they are lightning speed and island level, but in this discussion, it simply does not matter. It does not matter which is true because Benimaru is blatantly far above both of these possibilities. Therefore, I'm going to move on and talk about Jujutsu Kaisen's hacks and win conditions against Benimaru, because that is what actually matters here. Not how fast Maki can run if it's windy outside. That's irrelevant. Gojo's only win condition against Benimaru is his domain expansion Infinite Void. Blue is doing absolutely nothing. Red is doing absolutely nothing. And yeah, you guessed it, Hollow Purple is doing absolutely nothing. Because, say it with me now, purple is not matter erasure. In fact, domain expansions are actually part of the reason that JJK stands a chance against a lot of stronger anime universes, because some of them are just beyond broken. If Benimaru gets stuck inside Infinite Void, his brain will cook and he will be unalived. Simple as that. Infinite Void is far from the only domain expansion that would absolutely fry Benimaru if he got stuck inside it though, because Mahito's self-embodiment of perfection, Yorozu's threefold affliction, and Naoya's time cell moon palace will all kill Benimaru if he gets trapped inside them. His 4-meter radius heat negation and insane durability will mean absolutely nothing inside of these specific domains. Infinite Void renders you a vegetable the moment it opens, Mahito's idle transfiguration will bypass all defenses and it becomes a guaranteed one-shot in his domain. Yorozu's perfect sphere sure hit by all means shouldn't even be able to exist because it has infinite pressure, whatever that means. And yes, infinite pressure should just kill absolutely anyone it touches. Naoya's domain literally tears you apart cell by cell unless you define your movements to 24 actions per second. Even if Benimaru knows that's how the domain works though, him being fast enough to do 24 movements per second does not necessarily mean he has the skill to do it. It's not a matter of simply just being fast. It's a matter of having that innate sense for frame beats that now Bito had mastered in order to become the fastest sorcerer. I'd also like to point out very briefly that some people in the comments are going to go,
oh well, Benimaru doesn't have cursed energy, so he's going to be like Toji and immune to domain sure hits.
We're equalizing the power systems. I don't want to have this conversation because otherwise it gets way too complicated. If you want to play it like that and make that argument, then Benimaru's not going to be able to see half the crap that they pull, and if he kills any of them, they'll come back as a cursed spirit that's a lot stronger than the original, and and he then won't be able to kill them because he won't have cursed energy. So if you make that argument, you're screwing yourself because then Benimaru literally cannot beat anybody. So we'll just equalize it and move on with our day, yeah? Now, if Benimaru does make the naive mistake of letting himself be trapped inside any of these specific domain expansions, he will likely die. Simple as that. And now notice how I haven't mentioned Ryomen Sukuna at all. Do you know why that is? It's because he gets absolutely folded. He has no hacks that can deal with Benimaru unless you do it as like a post-Gojo vs Sukuna who has World Cutting Slash, because that probably would do the trick. Once Sukuna sees that Benimaru uses fire, and once he realizes that he is way out of his league in a hand-to-hand fight though, he will probably expand his domain. And Benimaru will not have a clue what's going on because he won't be able to see the slashes and he probably won't even feel them either. Sukuna will then contest Benimaru with his own specialty, fire. But let me tell you right now, I would pay to see the look on Sukuna's face when Benimaru whips out that Nichirin Sun Wheel and realizes that he is an absolute bum compared to the GOAT. Even Maharaga would not be able to save Sukuna from the arse-whipping Benimaru would give to him, because all Benny would have to do is stand near Maharaga and his spiritual pressure alone will just one-shot him. Out of the heavy hitters, only Maki and Yuta have win conditions, and insanely unachievable ones at that, while Hikari and Yuji and the rest of the special grades are gonna get absolutely rinsed by Benny. Maki's crappy win condition is the Soul Split Katana, as we've said, and the only way for Yuta to have a chance is if he manages to copy one of the domains mentioned above. Yuki's Earth-destroying black hole would probably work too, but it would be kind of cheap and hypocritical for me to say that she can destroy the Earth but Benimaru can't. Then again though, she is just straight up crazy and did low-key try to actually do it within the series, so I would have a good argument for that. The toughest opponent Benimaru has to face, and by far the strongest character in Jujutsu Kaisen, is in fact the reality warping comedian Fumiko Takaba. As long as he's in the comedy zone, which he almost always is, then he is totally immune to damage and can bring forth anything he finds funny into reality. He has a self-imposed no-kill rule, but he will fight to protect others just like he did against Kenjaku. And before you start talking about how, like, Benimaru would be able to do what Kenjaku did, or whatever you guys like to argue, I feel like a lot of JJK readers didn't read the Takaba fight, like, properly or multiple times and don't really understand what it is that Takaba's all about. Because it's not as simple as just, like, demoralizing him. Kenjaku tried that and it only made Takaba even more resolved in his method of trying to make Kenjaku laugh. To tell you the truth, the less Benimaru looks like he's going to laugh, which let's be honest, he's not gonna laugh at all, the more resolve Takaba's going to gain and the more motivated he's going to be to dedicate himself to try to make Benny laugh. And that just means he's gonna get stronger and stronger because Benny definitely does not have the techers like Kenjaku. Kenjaku is the only dude who was able to deal with that situation. Therefore, this fight is a guaranteed stalemate. Now then, even though there are a few attacks in Jujutsu Kaisen capable of harming Benimaru, the actual fights are a lot less simple than I've been making them out to be. Because you see, when faced with any of the opponents we have deemed to be worthy, Benimaru still has the clear advantage because he could just blitz and one-shot everybody who isn't called Gojo and Takaba. Would he do this though? Probably not. But will sorcerers like Yorozu, Mahito, and Gojo just use their domain immediately? Also, probably not. They will likely feel each other up a bit first. Oh, wait, pause. Now, because of the massive stat disparity, most of them are likely to die in just a basic hand-to-hand confrontation. In fact, I think sorcerers are so much weaker that Benny might accidentally kill them in a single strike like he's Saitama. Even Mahito's soul protection won't save him because Benimaru has the means to literally reduce that creep to dust with a single swipe of a hand. Due to Benimaru's immense speed, he will also be able to react to and avoid being trapped in a domain expansion, at least in theory. Even Gojo's domain, whose sure hit activates in less than 0.2 seconds, can likely be avoided by Benimaru. And yes, I know the 0.2 second thing is in reference to how long the domain lasts, but in Mahito vs Yuji and Todo, the narrator tells us that both Mahito and Gojo combine the two separate steps of barrier expansion and sure hit activation into one, and because it only lasts for 0.2 seconds, we can infer that the sure hit must have activated in less than that time. And it's probably, well, almost instantaneous, so there is a chance that Benimaru might actually fall victim to Infinite Void or Self-Embodiment of Perfection if he doesn't kill them both as soon as he can. The crucial thing to remember here though is that Benimaru does not know what a domain expansion is, and he does not know that he will instantly lose if he makes the mistake of letting himself get trapped inside of a domain such as Infinite Void. This is not a matter of intelligence, it's a matter of human behavior. Any fighter from a universe with a completely different power system to JJK will have absolutely no reason at all to suddenly run away at maximum speed just because some white white-haired dude in a blindfold crossed his fingers and started talking a load of gibberish. I mean, it's like this. How did Benimaru, or rather Moonlight Mask, know that Dragon and Charon didn't have some insanely broken insta-kill hacks that he should be careful to avoid? It's very simple. He didn't, and yet he chose to stand his ground and block their attacks anyway. The principle is the same for domains. He won't know that in order to win, he needs to escape the domain before being trapped in it. In fact, even if he can see it being expanded, he won't really be able to comprehend exactly what it is until it's probably too late. So in order to defeat Satoru Gojo, Benimaru would need to figure out that he cannot touch Gojo due to infinity, work out how to bypass it, and then execute his chosen method all before Gojo chooses to launch Infinite Void, which realistically, it sounds like a pretty big ask. My only concern is that Benimaru can actually bypass infinity quite easily without needing to destroy the planet. Because you see, Benimaru can simply control heat. All kinds of heat, regardless of what's creating it. Heat is a natural part of the human body, and infinity is definitely not going to help Gojo when Benimaru just decides to massively up that heat and burn Gojo alive from the inside out. But I do legitimately believe that in character, with the information gap that they have, the result of this fight literally just comes down to who decides to go for a kill shot first. It's as simple as that. I mean, sure, this domain reaction argument does work for everyone else with a domain that can harm Benimaru, but all those other characters can be very easily destroyed before they have a chance to even try because they don't have infinity. But overall, I do want to make it very clear that I believe Jujutsu Kaisen's physical stat scaling is way lower than Fire Force and a load of other animes. However, I don't understand how you can justify these characters running away from domain expansions when they don't know how they work or what they are. It just seems like a proper ass-pulley reason for them to not be trapped inside them. Just because a very strong character is capable of doing something does not mean that in the actual situation they will do it. Because if that was the case, every character in fiction would be making the right decisions with all the right information every single time, which is just not realistic. In conclusion though, Benimaru is literally hundreds of times stronger than the peak of Jujutsu Kaisen, and if he was to face off with them, he would more than likely decimate them all with little to no difficulty. But again, just because his stats are far superior does not mean that he gets a free win against the characters with better hacks than him. It's like that Itachi thing, you know? Itachi and Aizen are probably the best examples of characters that are capable of killing other characters way stronger than them simply because of their insanely broken abilities. Itachi just has to look at somebody and then bam, they are stuck in a never-ending genjutsu that can't be overcome via stats no matter how strong they may be. The logic with Benimaru versus Jujutsu Kaisen is pretty much the same. Benimaru is league stronger and would destroy everybody in a normal fight, but if Gojo just expands his domain and Benimaru doesn't take the precaution of running away, then Benimaru will lose. Because being able to destroy a planet and being durable enough to withstand planet-destroying attacks means absolutely nothing when your brain gets exposed to an infinite stream of information all at once. Benimaru is just my absolute go-to Fire Force though, so obviously I'm gonna give the W to him. I'm not trying to argue otherwise. I'm just saying the possibilities there, you know? Which I guess means I was trying to argue otherwise, but you get the point. And please remember that I'm not actually claiming anything in this video to be fact. I acknowledge that you will all have different takes, and that's completely fine. I'm not trying to convince anyone otherwise. I'm just giving my own thoughts on it. I don't make these videos with the intention of being crazy accurate and unbiased when scaling, because that's simply not possible, and I find that approach immensely boring. I make these videos to give an interesting and entertaining what-if styled scenario for if they actually fought that involves conversations about ability and character interactions. Simply saying that Benimaru is planet level and JJK isn't, therefore Benimaru slams, would make for such a boring video, both to make and to watch. Overall, Benimaru deletes Jujutsu Kaisen, but some characters stand a better chance than you would think. Like, subscribe, become a member, you know the drill. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a bit.